Happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful beginning to 2024. We heard recently in the news that Catherine, Princess of Wales, is recovering from abdominal surgery. So today I wanted to take a look at the astrology chart. If you look at my most recent video, I did say and forecast that there were going to be some challenges for Catherine, Princess of Wales. Let's go ahead and take a little bit more of a deep dive into that so we can get a greater understanding of some of the astrological energies involved. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you to all my patrons and new subscribers. Your support is appreciated. By the way, I practice Vedic sidereal astrology, not Western tropical. So this is the astrology that comes from ancient India, and it uses the sidereal zodiac. I believe it's more accurate than the Western tropical zodiac, by the way. Now, if you're interested in a private reading, check down below. There is a New Year's discount, so make sure you check that out. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Catherine, Princess of Wales, her chart here. Let me go ahead and we'll pull up the chart first, and then we'll look at this slideshow. So let's go ahead and pull that up. By the way, a quick disclaimer. This reading is for entertainment purposes only. All statements, these are all just speculations and allegedlys about the astrological energies in Princess Kate's chart. All right, so let's look at what's going on right now. One of the things I want to point out is in Vedic astrology, we use something called the Vimshatari Dasha, which I like to call, for people that are new, you can just think of it as a planetary timeline that we're all on. I mean, we're all in one of these timelines. So Princess of Wales is on one of these as well. We're going to focus in on that she's in a Jupiter Antardasha right now. So Jupiter is the planet. So you can think about it as a Jupiter timeline. Jupiter's right here, by the way. This is the glyph or the symbol for Jupiter. It's in the fourth house. Right away with the fourth house, we know that this is a lot of time spent at home, has to deal with, for example, fourth house can represent mother figures, property, real estate. And then Jupiter can represent children. So children are going to be an important part of the life right now. But we also got to look at what houses does Jupiter own. A lot of times in Vedic astrology, it's almost more important to look at the house rulership of a planet, even more so than the house that it's in, even though it all kind of, it all kind of works together. The house rulership is so important. So in Princess Kate's case, and I know some of you might correct me, I know Catherine, Princess of Wales, I'm just so used to the old what we used to call her, so I'm sorry if that offends some of you. Let's go and look at the sixth house and the ninth house. These are the two houses that Jupiter rules within the chart here. So sixth house is Sagittarius, ninth house is Pisces. So a lot of what's unfolding in the life experience is related to both of those houses. Also, when you're running a planetary timeline period, it's also important to realize that the planet's also activating the planets within the house. So think about it like this. Jupiter owns this house. It's like the owner of the house, and the tenants of that house are also being activated. So the beings that live in that house are also being activated in what they represent. So that's something to consider when we look at what's going on with the Princess of Wales at the moment. Let me go ahead and take you to the slideshow, because I want to really help you all understand, what does the sixth house mean? The ninth house, we're not as focused on it, but the ninth house can represent a period of study, of reflection, of things like religion. So even things like religion might become important. And I'm sure when you're going through a traumatic life event like this, it's a pretty serious surgery from what I heard. She's canceled the events all the way till Easter. So this is several months of planned recovery time. So, I mean, this could represent a period of reflection. And sometimes what the universe will do is we'll be put through these events where we have to slow down. We're able to study. We're able to focus on our spiritual selves. And that's kind of what happens with the ninth house. Now, let me pull up the slide here so we can talk about the sixth house. Okay, because that's kind of what what people would be focusing on with the news headlines, obviously. So the news was it's been reported that Princess of Wales is recovering from abdominal surgery. Now I'm not sure exactly. I don't think they told us exactly what it was. We're just kind of it's a little bit vague on what it was. I know there's some privacy concerns there. So obviously, again, Jupiter Antardasha, December 22 to March 2025. So the thing to be aware of it's this is affecting all of 2024. It's going to be flavored by this. Now, Jupiter is a natural benefic. Usually, when we look at planets like Jupiter and Venus, they're thought of as these natural, benefic planets that bring us many blessings. And that's true. There are blessings that Jupiter will bring. But we also have to keep in mind that a natural benefic could still be a functional malefic, as it is for Cancer ascendant, which the Princess of Wales is Cancer ascendant. Okay. So, and that's because it rules the sixth house. The sixth house is associated with issues and problems and difficulty and imbalance. Let's talk about what the sixth house represents. The sixth house represents things like disease, conflict, imbalance, debt, medicine, discomfort. So things like going and seeing doctors. Now, I've seen with medical issues in general, this could be during periods of the sixth house in the eighth house as well, and the 12th house. Remember, the sixth house, the eighth house, the 12th house are all considered malefic houses. The sixth house and eighth house are usually the worst. Okay. The 12th house is usually just a period of low vitality, but we're focused on the sixth house. This represents disease. The thing I also wanted to point out is K2 is there. It's with Sun. K2 represents karma associated with past lives. Now, if some of you believe in karma, Vedic astrology is very much influenced by, Hinduism and Buddhism and some of the Eastern thought. There's this idea that everything that happens within our current life has some sort of karmic cause behind it. So this could be associated with some sort of past life karma when we're talking about K2 being involved. Let me pull up the chart right here. Oops, we went back to the slideshow there. So let me go ahead and put up the chart. So one thing I also want to point out was with K2 being activated here, K2 can represent, and by the way, this is not a medical reading, this is for entertainment purposes only. But I've noticed that in several cases, K2 can represent removing things from your life. And I've seen even cases where K2 can be associated with things like amputation, removal of things. Now, this may or may not be associated with that, but K2 can definitely represent something. There's something, and sometimes it can represent like something physically, happening there. So that's something to consider with K2 being there. K2 can represent, for example, can represent cutting. It can represent, definitely, it can be associated with surgery when it's in the sixth house. Okay, so there's some strong indications there. Now, Sun in the sixth house is, Sun's considered a natural malefic, although it's a mild malefic. But I feel like Sun is also giving her a lot of strength there. So she has this resiliency with Sun being there in the sixth house. So Sun isn't necessarily a bad planet. Sometimes with K2 being in the sixth house, one of the things I wanted to bring up was sometimes it can represent apathy. For example, the sixth house can represent your health in general, and K2 in the sixth house can sometimes represent like not paying attention to things, or there's a certain apathy there. Because, especially in the Princess of Wales case, she could be a very service oriented people. Maybe she's focused on the people around her. Okay, that's especially with Moon being in the 12th house there. Very sensitive, very focused, very empathic, not focused on the self. And then sometimes when we're not focused on ourselves, sometimes health can become an issue there. So that's just speculation, but sometimes that can happen with K2 being in the sixth house. The other thing I want to bring up is we do have to talk about transiting Saturn, because transiting Saturn, and this is regardless of what planetary bhukti you're in, transiting Saturn is always going to have a strong effect on you. Okay. So that's one of the exceptions. when we look at planetary timelines like the Vimshatari Dasha, the planetary timeline is going to be the absolute arbiter of what happens really in your life. The transits are usually more supporting. The most important transits, besides, for example, in this case, it would be Jupiter. We'd want to look at Mercury and Jupiter because they're the planetary lords right now. But Saturn and Rahu and Ketu, we always want to look at. So regardless of what planetary period one is in. Now, one thing that Saturn in the eighth houses represents is usually there's some sort of crisis that takes place within one's life during the Saturn transit when it's in the eighth house. So let me go ahead and put up the slideshow because I want you all to understand. Some of you that are watching this may have Saturn going through the eighth house or Saturn going eighth from Moon. That can be a difficult transit as well. That's called Ashtam Shani. And that can be a difficult. Anytime there's an eighth angle going on, it's usually a difficult transit. Let's talk about Saturn going through Aquarius. That started January of 2023. That's going to continue till March of 2025. So this transit is affecting the Princess of Wales all of 2024. Okay. Now, the eighth house, Saturn in the eighth house, it represents usually a crisis and some sort of slow transformation. It is the eighth lord. So there is some sort of transformation that is taking place. Sometimes, it's weird. The body can even go through some sort of upheavals, and it's some sort of it's like this way of Saturn or the planets like putting you into some sort of vibrational alignment through these various crises that may occur. So it's interesting how that happens. It's like you're being forced through the crisis to change. It could change your consciousness. So for example, if you go through this really traumatic event and you go through this, and this is me just kind of thinking out loud here, but you go through this really slow recovery time after this surgery, and it gives you all this time to think about what's important in life. That's a transformation. That's bringing you back to basics of spirituality and what's important in life. Saturn, the difficulty is Saturn can create a very slow recovery time. So 2024 is likely to be a very slow recovery time. She may feel quite low on energy during this time, just the whole year. Even if things look pretty good by April or by Easter, it still just might feel like this, just kind of like the energy is just it's really taking a toll on the body. Okay, with this Saturn transit that's happening. But I do want to tell you what the benefit of Saturn in the eighth house is. There is actually a benefit there. So what Saturn will usually do is Saturn will usually freeze the crisis. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. So you're kind of frozen in the trauma, you're frozen in the crisis, but Saturn a lot of times will minimize the crisis, or it will keep it where it will contain the crisis where it doesn't expand anymore. So for example, this surgery is likely very needed, and it could be that it's actually having great benefit for the long term. Okay, so it's minimizing some sort of long-term issue that's happening with the eighth house. Now, the eighth house is also associated with sudden eruptions. So for example, like what I was thinking of with sudden eruptions is things like appendicitis, and things like that, where something is like very sudden and it comes on very suddenly. Sometimes the eighth house can represent things like that. So things just getting like out of nowhere somewhat. But I did hear that this was planned, so it's probably not related to that. But it is something to consider. But I do feel like this is going to be a difficult year of transformation because of this Saturn transit through the eighth house. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you all think down below. Please send me your comments, and send me your suggestions for videos. As if I can find a birth time, and if the topic is relevant enough, I will do it. So thank you very much for watching my video. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.